All right, guys, welcome back to the Handcrafted Podcast. The Handcrafted Podcast is brought to you by the Handcrafted Network, an online community and school for woodworkers looking to grow and build their business. We recently launched a whole section about ad support, so if you're interested in running meta ads, it's a great place to learn how to do that. If you have any questions about it, it's Paul at thehandcraftednetwork.com. Again, that's Paul at thehandcraftednetwork.com. All right, so in the group, there's been a lot of talk in the community. There's been a lot of talk about scaling, growing. How do you increase your revenue? How do you hit your different goals? All of that sort of stuff. So I wanted to talk about that today. And I think this conversation can sort of go is relevant for no matter what size business you are. So maybe if you're somebody just starting out, or if you have a team and you're trying to, hit another threshold, get an extra $1 million out there or whatever, I think this can sort of be helpful. So with all that conversation, and recently the weather started changing up here where I'm based outside of Philadelphia. And the cooler weather actually sort of makes me start to reflect a little bit on the year and what my intentions are and what my goals are for next year. So what I really started to do was think about, hey, how do I hit my revenue targets for next year? What are the pieces that I need to put in place to grow where I am today? We've been historically growing between 10 and 20% per year, which is really great, but I would like to accelerate that rate a little bit more. I'd like to gain maybe about 50% next year. So I wanted to think about what it would require for me to do so. So I want to rewind all the way back to where you kind of start when you're looking to grow and you're looking to maybe add team members, get a bigger workshop, go from part-time to full-time, all that sort of stuff. So let's rewind all the way back. So a lot of people come to me, and when I'm talking to them, they say, hey, what are my next steps? What are the things that I should be doing to get to sort of the next level? How do I get more work, right? That's always like the thing. How do I get more work? How do I get more work? How do I fill my queue? All of that stuff. So the first thing that I always ask people is, what has been working historically? The pieces that are currently in your queue, how did you get them? And if you don't know the answer to that, you really need to take the time to investigate and figure out exactly how you got those particular clients. So maybe they're friends, right? And it's like, okay, how did that friend hear about you? Oh, it was like maybe word of mouth. Maybe you connected with them. Okay, great. So if you reached out to them, then that's a great way to know, okay, if I reach out to more people and if I follow the same path that I did to get this one client, I should be able to get more. And what I started doing was really kind of reverse engineering how each individual client was coming in. And I go, okay, cool. So if I just do more of that, it will bring more work in. So one of the ways that, for example, a lot of us get business is through word of mouth. And once you find out, hey, I found out from so-and-so, what we started doing was investigate, okay, how do we get more people through word of mouth? Whether that be incentivize people to share, incentivize people to maybe post on social media, incentivize people to leave a review. All of your previous clients, reaching out to them being like, hey, it was great to work with you. I'd love to work with other people let me know. It'd be great if you could share our information. So what I really started doing was like doubling down on all of that sort of stuff. And as new revenues, as new streams of people came in, and as new sort of like revenue generating projects came in the door, I would do the same thing. So it slowly starts to expand from when I was growing Philadelphia Table Company from the beginning, and we will get into a little bit further higher level stuff, so beyond that. So when I was first starting, it started with like family and friends, and then friends of friends, and then friends of friends of friends. And then what happened was we started building sort of like a local network of people. We had people sort of start to walk by our workshop in downtown Philly. I also started doing a lot of cold outreach. And what I started doing was connecting the dots and realizing, okay, if I do more of X, I should get more people in the door. And the other thing too is like when I talk to people about this, they'll be like, so for example, say you are like, oh, I get my clients from Google. And I'm like, okay, great. you should put some money into Google Ads. That should be a great way for you to grow. And it's like, I tried that, it didn't work. And it's like, but did you really try that? Did you really go all the way in? Did you go all in on that and figure out how to do it, right? So the other thing too is like the word of mouth thing. It's like, did you really go in and work with clients to create an incentive program? Did you really try hard to get people to do that? Did you really push hard enough to get enough reviews? So I think a lot of people go, oh, I tried that and didn't work, and they're so quick to write it off. But if it worked once, it's going to work again. So I think it's a lot of repeat the same thing over and over again. So as the company grows and as you start bringing in more people, like I said, or bringing in more clients, you bringing in more projects, like I said before, you start to have like a little bit more of a diverse spectrum. So for us, you started working with interior designers. So I was like, okay, great. This is great. So let's figure out how do we get more interior designers? And then we started doing a lot more hospitality commercial. So okay, how do we get more hospitality commercial? How did I get that first one? How do I get a second, third, fourth, fifth one? And every step of the way, that was sort of how I sort of clawed my way up without really paying a ton of money into advertising, without really putting any money into the, Meta system or like the Google Ads system. And, if you're just starting out, those likely are not the right ways to go. I know a lot of you guys, I've talked to a lot of you guys one-on-one, and I know a lot of you guys in the group are really starting pretty early with running the Meta ads. And to me, it's just you're spending a lot of money on something that's not fully vetted, right? You don't know fully how to close deals. You don't know fully how to work with these people. You don't know how to properly price. So I think going into that route is maybe something that happens a little further down the road, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit here as well. So as the company starts to grow and started to grow, what started happening for me was I was just kind of clawing my way through and figuring out how does this lead to this lead to this. And what happened was I found myself sort of stuck within like kind of the 6-figure number. I was probably stuck within the 6-figure number for probably about 5 years or so, 5 or 6 years. And I was like, I need to figure out a way to break through. My goal was always to hit $1 million when I started, which always kind of felt like this huge, huge goal. Now that we're, well past that, it feels like the goal line continually shifts. But when I really wanted to try to hit the $1 million, I had to figure out what I had to do to get there. So I actually created a document that you can get from me if you send me an email. It's shared in the group. I was talking to a lot of people about it this week because again, for some reason, a lot of the conversation have been revolved around scaling. So it's a strategic revenue planner. If you're interested in getting it from me, just send me an email. I'll gladly email it to you. It's paul@thehandcraftednetwork.com. So what the planner does is it actually breaks down, you set what your goal is. So for me, I was like, hey, I want my goal to be $1 million. So I put that on the top line. And what I do is I break down sort of the different project buckets that we have. So just for easy way of thinking about it, I'll go by what we currently do, which is 1/3 commercial. So 1/3 probably hospitality, residential, 1/3 directly to interior designers, and then 1/3 to like homeowners. So if you're breaking that down into dollar figures, right, and you're trying to hit $1 million, it's $333,333, whatever, to get to the $1 million. So each one of those is broken down. So then what I started doing was breaking it down by week and then by month. By month and then by week. So what I really started doing was knowing what my target was and what the things were to get there. And so I knew that at the end of every month, I needed to have about 85. I think the number's like 86. I'm doing sort of quick public math here, but 86K a month to get me to that $1 million mark. And I really set that goal to say, hey, how do I do this? And below that in the sheet, I also have a whole workshop sheet there that explains what efforts are you going to be doing to get there, right? How are you going to do this? So for hospitality, it was a lot of cold outreach to architecture design firms, figuring out who the people were that were the decision makers that are putting those decisions. For interior designers, it was setting up lunch and learns, finding ways to connect with people. And then for homeowners, it was a lot more about doing the incentivizing of sharing, as well as doing Google reviews and start putting some money into some advertising. So I started putting money into Google Ads right around this time period when I was trying to cross that $1 million mark. I still hadn't done a ton with Facebook. I did a little bit with Instagram, just like kind of like boosting posts. I actually didn't really start putting a ton of money into Meta Facebook stuff until this past year, actually. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Then the other thing too is like you start to realize as well what sort of offering. So when I was doing it today, or when I was doing it yesterday morning with my coffee, trying to figure out, hey, what are the next steps? I was trying to figure out what are the new services I can offer to really increase those numbers. So if it's like 333, what else can I offer? I was like, okay. If we've been working for a long time on chairs. So I'm like, okay, if we start offering chairs, what's that going to add to the bottom line? If I figure 10% of clients are going to buy a table and buy chairs, what's that going to add? If I add interior design services, what's that going to add? If I add in-home repair, if I add built-ins, if I add all these different things. So what I was trying to do is just break down, hey, how do I increase what that dollar value is so that I can go and hit my goal? And through this worksheet, I actually have you kind of do reflective, hey, what is this currently? And then what is your goal going to be? So the goal is like helps you break it down. But if you look at what it is, you can basically start. And what I like to do actually is work a little bit backwards from that. So I like to say, okay, if I can sell 5 pieces a week, what does that turn into per month? What does that turn into per year? And what happens is you actually sometimes realize you undersell yourself on what the goal is, so you can kind of adjust. The other thing I really like about doing this sort of exercise is it shows you sort of what's attainable, right? So I'm talking to somebody in the group now. He now needs to go from, I don't know, I think like $300,000 to I think like $750 or something, because he wants to upgrade to a space. He wants to add an employee. And once you go through this worksheet, you start to see, hey, is this realistic? Is this a real goal that can be achievable? How am I going to go from 300 to 700? That's more than doubling. So what are the extra services that I'm going to be adding? How much more do I need to add per week? How much more do I need to add per month? How am I going to close that gap? And I think it really helps to reverse engineer and figure that out. And it's okay if it's something that doesn't fit within this year. It may be something that ends up fitting within 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road. Now, the other thing too that I wanted to talk about is because as I was going through this, I was like, I haven't really ever done a ton of long-term planning. I've never really been like, hey, in 6 years, I want to be here. In 5 years, I want to be here. And this is for the first time I started thinking, okay, how do I get to what my end goal is and figure out how do I hit there financially? And I know I'm not going to hit there next year. I know maybe not the year after that. And start figuring out building the systems and processes in place. Start figuring out what sort of new sales offerings I can offer, and knowing that continually year over year, again, there's going to be down years, there's going to be up years, but I know that my average is between 10 and 20% growth. So where am I going to be if I just sort of stay the same path that I'm doing? How long is it going to take me to get from where I am today to whatever, $10 million or something, if I'm just doing the same thing over and over again? And to me, that seems like a pretty long slog. So when you're really trying to scale, it takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of investment in that, and it takes a lot of capital. So it's actually a little better to try to scale quickly, so this way you can add a few more people. So every step of the way, every rung, every 20% or something might be a new employee, it might be a new shop space, it might be new machinery. So these are all things that you need to actually break down and figure out, hey, how do I get from point A to point B? And I think a lot of us don't ever really take the time to plan this out. I remember when I first came up with this was something I was working on with a private coach that I had. And it really blew my mind, because I was like, holy crap, like I never even thought of it this way. And once I had those sort of monthly goals, I was like, okay, now I know what I need to aim for to hit this target. And I also know if I fall short, what are the other things that I need to start adding within the next year, coming weeks, months, years, in order to increase that revenue number. And one of the things I just started reading was a book called, actually just finished, it's called Ready, Fire, Aim. One of the things that they talk about, and it's really interesting because they break businesses down by dollar value. So they kind of talk about, hey, when you're in the early stage, when you're in the mid stage, when you're in the late stage. In the middle stage, so the early stage is kind of like you find the thing that really, really works. You find the thing that's like, for us, for example, it was like tables. We did a crap ton of tables. That was like the thing that really works. And then once you graduate from the little stage to the medium stage, what happens is you actually need to start adding new things to your product line. So for us, maybe it's not just tables. Like I said, we're starting to add in chairs. I think that's sort of the next go-to. We had always done case goods, so case goods were kind of always just like a part of the bucket. But I wanted to figure out, okay, so what can I sell to my same clients that I'm already selling? So I'm selling a table, but I'm not selling chairs. So I'm like, this is a no-brainer. So this is something that I could start adding. So upcharge. So finding ways that you can add new things onto the package to increase the dollar value for it. Like I said, we've been working on chairs. We've recently sold probably 4 or 5 sets, and these are chairs we're doing in-house, designing in-house. So it's a lot. We're not doing the outsource stuff. There's a lot of people, a lot of white label companies you can buy chairs from. That's a cool way to go. But we're pretty precious about our design, so I wanted to make a specific design specific to us. And so the 4 clients that we added chairs to actually doubled the ticket value. So I'm thinking, holy smokes, if I continue to do this throughout, I think it could add another 10 to 20% of our top line revenue throughout the year. And then if that compounds, so if we grow another 20% every year, it's getting me closer and closer and closer to my goal. So the big thing, really, I think the big takeaway here is to go back to the drawing board and figure out the first step is to figure out how did you get your current book of clients, whether it's 1 or 25, how did you get those people? Do more of that. Once you start doing more of that and you've doubled down, you go, okay, cool, I have a good grasp on how this sort of works. I think the next step is starting to add different products, different offerings, other things that you could then resell back to the same clients. And I also think, like I had talked about before, is using a worksheet to really break that stuff down. If you want my specific worksheet, no problem. I'll gladly email it to you. It's just paul@thehandcraftednetwork.com. I'll send that worksheet over to you for you to look at and download and work through. But I think breaking down what your goal is and breaking it down by month and week, you really can see what's a realistic expectation. Can I add, can I add an extra $100,000? What does that look like? Do I have the capacity to do 1 more project a week? Do I have the capacity to add 3 more projects per month, or 8 more projects per month, or 25 more projects per year, right? So once you break it down, it really helps understand all that stuff. All right, guys, as always, love your questions. I have a few questions that have been piling up. I'm going to do an office hours next week probably to answer some of those questions. If you want to be included in that pile of questions, feel free to send me an email, paul@thehandcraftednetwork.com. Again, if you want that worksheet that I talked about, you could send me an email. If you're interested in joining the community, if you're listening to this podcast, it's likely a really great fit for you. We do a lot of this sort of talking about this sort of stuff in a group setting. You have a lot of other people that you're working with together, one-on-one, and then I've also broken down a bunch of classroom sections where, for example, this worksheet is in, where I talk you through how to do it and I work it through with you. And again, we also set up another whole section on running meta ads effectively and how to generate more revenue that way. Oh, and that was the other thing I guess I forgot to add, so I'll jump back into that really quick, is recently we just started running meta ads this year, and that increased our top line revenue by about 30% or so. So that was a really great addition. So finding new ways to find work, but also doubling down on what the old ways are. So it's stacking on top of each other. Each thing isn't necessarily replaceable. So it's not like, okay, I don't have to do cold outreach anymore because I'm doing it through ads. No, it's now you do cold outreach and you do ads. So you kind of keep building and building and building. So you have a nice solid foundation. All right, guys, that's it. Hope you guys have a great week. I'm excited for the week ahead. I'm also excited for this cooler fall weather. Stay motivated, and again, don't be afraid to get in touch. All right, guys, peace.